Do me a favor. Like, follow, and subscribe to Sex, Lies, and Blank Pages, and follow them wherever you can get your podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, or their website. You're not going to fucking regret it.
Welcome to Sex, Lies, and Blank Pages with our special guest, Joe Arden.
Yay! Welcome,
Hi.
Joe.
Thank
Hi,
you so
Joe.
much for having me. Hi, I'm thrilled to be here.
It's great to
It's-
see you again.
Well,
To talk
see
to you
you.
again. Yeah. Yes, to talk to you again. We know who you are, and so many readers out there do. But do you mind just introducing us or introducing yourself for all of us who are out there in the audience who haven't gotten the chance to meet you yet?
I don't know why this feels like a really pressure-packed way to start because I feel like I haven't introduced myself in a while. But I love it. So I'm an audiobook narrator and romance author. I have narrated over 600 stories and I have penned one and a half. So
I love the half.
and I'm thrilled to be a part of this community. I have tried to use my voice to kind of uplift and help create and build bridges and be sort of a community cheerleader of sorts. I'm really very grateful to be a part of Romancelandia, a place I never really could have possibly imagined myself. So I am trying to take advantage of that time and do it by spreading positivity and love wherever I can.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Did you? Oh, can you start like what got you into this business? Like you said, you never expected to be in Romancelandia. Like what actually, what were the steps that got you even into this?
So my path is that of like a real sort of journeyman actor situation. Like I had moved to New York after getting a master's degree in performance in acting, and I was grinding. I was auditioning at, going down to the equity offices at 7 o'clock in the morning to sign up for an audition and hope that I'd get cast in some regional production of a 90-minute Midsummer Night's Dream, stuff like that. So I'm doing regional theater work. And
I played in that.
Yeah,
Um,
you
You
are
and I have a
speaking.
very similar past. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I was in I didn't do New York. I did the LA thing, which I should have done New York, but I feel I was the waitress, like the whole
yeah.
I
So-
acted in LA.
Well, I'm from Los Angeles. I'm a native Los Angelino, born and raised in the city, but I have a love for live performance and being on the stage. And so New York was the place I wanted to go and try and cultivate that. And I had a great time. My survival job there was as a Manny. I was one of the Upper West Side's most sought after male child caretakers.
Another story in that.
I know, right?
And
Now, hold on.
eventually, yeah,
The romance
We're
books
like,
you're writing
please
do
stop.
not have a Manny in them, though.
not yet.
Not
Okay.
excellent.
Ah,
Excellent. I love
Excellent choice there, words.
Yes.
Yeah, not yet.
There are actually, this is the first I've said this out loud, actually, but there are journals that I kept and a lot of pages from that time in my life, which I have been flirting with, revisiting with an eye toward seeing if that could become part of some sort of romance that I'd like to set in New York. I set the first two books, one I co-authored with Lauren Blakely and the other that I wrote by myself, The Chameleon Effect. I set both of those in Los Angeles, and really LA was kind of the first character that I wanted to write into the story because it's my actual hometown. And I have a love of New York as well. I think it's probably the greatest city in this country, which would put it pretty high up for best in the world. And anyway, so I had an opportunity, I was that struggling actor. Like I was doing what I could to try and figure out how to make rent, and had 3 roommates, and we were just doing what we could do. And got an opportunity through a union event, a SAG-AFTRA event, to learn about audiobooks and then set up an audition with the folks at Audible Studios, which is headquartered in New Jersey. They hired me like on the spot. Like I'd never been actors don't get hired. They don't get hired in the room. Like that doesn't happen.
No.
And it did. They were like, okay, we're gonna get you started with some books. So we're gonna email you and get you set up with a schedule. And I was like, oh, okay.
Like, right now? Yeah. What's going on?
Great.
Yeah.
And the first book that they offered me was an L. Kennedy book, whom I had never heard of at the time. And now, of course, realize what great and good fortune I had to be able to start my career with a writer as talented and as revered as L. fucking Kennedy. So.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. So, as an author and narrator, how do you juggle all that you have to do?
I still, at this point in my career, think of myself as a narrator primarily. And I actually think of myself, I think more of just sort of like as a content creator. I have a Patreon called Joe Arden's Audio Attic, and that's a space where it started as a place where I thought I would let some folks into sort of behind the scenes, what it's like to be a narrator, how I prep material, what I have to think about when I'm working, what it sounds like when a narrator is actually recording. And it has turned into this collaborative community space where I am able to just create. I have written a short story based on some of the stories that I've told in that community. We do weekly affirmations. I do what is called a weekly wisdom, and I share quotes. For a year, I wrote them myself. I've written 3 songs this year. So it's really just kind of become this fertile little playground. And it's an extremely supportive group of folks that are happy to see me sort of work through the process of creation. And it's been really wonderful. So as far as juggling, I guess it's, if I'm recording somebody else's words, that is the singular focus of my creative energy. I have a primary allegiance to that author's written work. I know how hard authors work on penning those stories and figuring out who these characters are and what they're fighting against and how they get to their happy ending. So when I'm in, I literally lock the door of a soundproof booth and put everything else aside and focus on that work. And then in my downtime, start thinking about sort of what moves me creatively, whether that's writing or whatever it may take shape as. So I'm in a fortunate position where I still have that sort of performative background that is the sort of touchstone of what I'm doing, so that I don't, I mean, I work with so many authors. I run a production company called Blue Nose Audio, and we get emails all the time. It's like, I know I told you my deadline and I'm a week behind, or like, this is the 6th book I've written this year and it's not coming as easily as the first 5. Like right now, I'm not under those kinds of authorial rigors and pressures. So
I would have no idea what it's like missing a deadline. No.
No.
As I just waved goodbye to the second version of a deadline for my win.
Hi, deadline.
Yeah,
It was nice knowing you.
literally. It
Yeah.
was nice to see you. But
Nice to
I'm
you.
drinking wine, whereas Stacy, I believe you have coffee, right? Because it's your morning. So I'm gonna ask the dirty question. What do you think about reading all the sex scenes? That's like,
I know. I was like,
I think
oh,
so
it's my
many
morning.
people, right? Like,
I thought you were going to ask what I was drinking. I was very excited. To
well,
answer that
also
question.
that it's your PM, right? No, it's not.
I'm
Girl,
drinking.
we're at 4 p.m.
It's the end of my
It's
work
cocktail.
day. So I do
Yeah.
not. If I'm narrating, I drink water, a little bit of coffee, and every once in a while some sort of tea, either an Earl Grey or there's a company called Traditional Medicinals, and they make something called lemon echinacea throat coat tea, and I will add fresh ginger, lemon, and local honey to that.
So healthy. Is that what you're drinking now?
No, I'm drinking bourbon right now.
Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent. Yes.
Good answer.
Yes.
I was like, that sounds really good right now.
I know, right?
So your question is, I like how you think. So I don't actually need to be socially lubricated to tell you how I feel about narrating the
Excellent.
sex scenes.
Yes. I
Um,
generally don't either, but I try to be.
Okay.
I try to blame it on the alcohol. So go for it.
I I feel more grounded and connected to it now than I did at the beginning of my career. And I think I came into this industry with a lot of the same hangups that many newer narrators come in with. And some of them are technical issues. For example, how connected and committed should I be as a performer when I am narrating a sex scene and the woman is moaning or the woman is climaxing? How much do I lean into that?
How much growl do you give, right?
Well, I mean, it's listen,
Yeah.
for the male perspective, I think it's much easier for me to just find verisimilitude and check in with my own sense of truth in that space, and the voice is naturally going to come. but there are female moments of ecstasy and pleasure that I voice. And so what does that look like? And I think there was a tentativeness and a hesitation at the beginning of my career because I really, frankly, just didn't have an answer to that. And I've come to realize now that it's my job to be as truthful with every moment in a story that I have been tasked with telling, regardless of whose perspective, whose background, whose story that is. So when the women are coming in my sex scenes, they are having a damn fucking good time doing it.
Excellent. And for our audience who's unaware, you do dual point of view at times. So you'll do an entire chapter from the female perspective and in the female voice. So you're having a beautiful voice. And I just want to make sure our audience knows, you know, and
That's right.
we heard a little bit earlier when you were
Yes.
discussing your that audition where you were changing your voice literally on the spot to mimic theirs. And I almost commented like how seamlessly it was done without even thought practically. You didn't miss a beat. And you do that in books as well, which is
Yes.
which is
So
wonderful.
So the industry has grown and the fan base has really sort of ballooned, and it's very exciting. And authors are getting more and more invested in what the audio of their stories and their intellectual properties sound like. And it's very exciting to be a part of that collaboration. And one of the things that is now one of the early questions that an author should be asking either their fans or their team or themselves is how they want that story being told. So solo or dual POV are projects where one voice or two voices, three voices will record the story, and whoever is responsible for the narrative POV in that section reads everything in that chapter or everything in that chunk of text. Male voices, female voices, whoever it is. And then it is the production team's responsibility and the narrator's job to collaborate and make sure that everybody's on the same page so that accents and pronunciations and voices are being done consistently throughout a book. Now, there's an increasingly popular mode of storytelling now called duet narration or full cast or multicast, wherein those it's generally like the gender-based roles will be tackled by a male representing or a female representing voice throughout the story. And one of the things I tell my authors that I help produce for, that I work with, is if you really loved the dialogue that you wrote, if the banter is the thing that really sings in this story, whether it's
Get 'em.
sexy or platonic or just sort of spicy or fun, if you really love that, I think it's worth considering what duet narration would do to that story, because it's really nice to feel that dialogue organically interplay with the two different voices. In addition, if the thing that all of your fans are saying is, oh, the mouth on so-and-so, oh, the dirty talk from Cash James, for example, then I think that you may also be in a position where duet could really help service your story, because then that narrator, male, female, whoever, becomes the only voice for that character. And wherever you hear them in the story, that is the voice that you associate with them. And I think it creates a level of intimacy and connection to the character in a way that solo or dual POV has a harder time doing.
How do you feel about that new wave of like this what is it, like when the sounds are now they're adding sounds to the audios too, like, you know, like she closed the door and you hear the door slam, you know, how do you feel about that being added to it? I thought it's immersive or something like that. There's some audio that are starting like that where they're really making an immersive experience.
So as a storytelling purist, as a person that believes that do you know Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Mm.
There's this social philosopher who sort of made this pyramid that was like, at the bottom of the pyramid are the things that you need, everybody needs. To be a human, you need these things. And it's, food, water, shelter. And then you sort of build. And then what's sort of just above that? And beyond the needs, you get into the space of wants. And I believe that a primary want of human civilization, and very possibly an actual need, is our need to communicate and to connect. And telling stories to each other is the most fundamental way to do that. It is the first thing that first civilized man would have done. Hunt, gather, protect the kids, get around a fire, and tell fucking stories. So the the purist in me believes that the best stories are told the simplest way. And what I love about this medium more than any other entertainment vessel at all is that there is one story being filtered through one performer into one sense. There's no visual component. There's no tactile component. It is somebody's voice helping you paint an immersive, imaginative experience through your fucking ears. And now with headphones the way they are, it is a very intimate and a kind of experience where you can actually drown out the other senses that may even be getting in the way. It doesn't strip books of that thing that makes books so fucking sexy, which is the imagination.
Right.
Willow gets to pen a character, and every person that takes that in is going to draw that person in their mind just a little differently. And so the consumer becomes a part of the story in a way that is unlike any other form of entertainment. So do I think that it can be fun to have sound effects and a music scape and stuff? Sure. Do I think that that's the point of the medium? I don't. I think that it's about people that wrote stories and somebody that's really good at telling them, sharing them with an audience.
Excellent. And I love, like,
I know.
we're also hitting you with like question after question, but I also have another question. I want to know about sex positivity and whether or not, when you're doing these romance books and you've been doing them for so long, have romance books given you more sex positivity, or like, because it absolutely does for women and for the women who I've spoken to, whether they're reading it, writing it, or just involved in the industry. Could you say that for men, at least from your perspective, that that could also happen, that it would be a positive reflection on sex mindset?
Consent and communication and collaboration have been blown wide open and painted in a million colors in my landscape because of the chapters that I've recorded that take place in that space. And as a consumer of those stories and as a teller of those tales, it has expanded my vocabulary, and it has brought me back to this one touchstone time and time again. If it's a desire of yours, if it's something that moves you, something that makes you feel something inside, if you are able to articulate it, there is a partner out there, somebody for whom they receive that fantasy in a way that will electrify them in the same way it does you. And together, you can expand your horizons, push your boundaries, find new spaces for pleasure and self-acceptance that were never there before. And I think about there's one book that I recently narrated, Janie Crouch, or I think she may have read it, wrote it as Josie Jade, I believe, Montana Desire. And in chapter 19 of Montana Desire, there's rope play.
That
And
chapter was very memorable for you, I can tell.
well,
Keep going. I didn't mean to
Yeah.
interrupt. Go. Yeah.
it was. There are certain chapters that are. Some are memorable for their emotional breadth and depth. Some for the monologue here or there, or the character development. And in this one, what absolutely stuck out in my mind, and my co-narrator, Janine Granda, it was my character's POV, so I narrated it, but she read the chapter as well. Both of us were so struck by how clear the consent was and how consistent, I believe the character's name is Grant, how consistent Grant's connection to the female character was to check in with where she was mentally during this physical and emotional limiting exercise.
And
It
this
was-
title, it's Montana Desires,
I believe it's Montana Desire, singular.
but Desire
and
Singer.
But again, I use this really just as a specific example for what has been really illuminating for me as somebody who's now consumed a lot of these stories, which is use your words. Find the words that articulate your desires. And the thing is, even if you are already in a fully committed relationship, I guarantee you more often than not, those partners are going to be interested in your desires, your passions, the things that move you. But when we can't find the language for it, then we either stumble into it or around it, or we shame ourselves for it, or we hide from it. And reading these stories, consuming them, being a part of that narrative, I think helps grant permission and, frankly, helps establish a vocabulary that you can lean on and use in your own interpersonal relationships.
Well, we
So,
have talked about this before.
Yeah.
Stacey, are you going to
Yeah.
touch on
No,
men
I was just
and
gonna
their,
say
oh, sorry, go ahead.
he even responds like a romance novel.
Yes,
Says, I'm like,
yes.
this could be in a romance novel.
Yeah, and
I'm very
spoken-
relaxed.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
very
I know, and then
relaxed
you also
listening
need
to
to
you
do-
talk.
Where's
And
also
Joe
that
speaks like
quiet
this
when people
in real
sleep.
life too. Yes, in
I was
real
like,
life.
do that quiet thing
Yeah.
that like you speak and I can just like
I
Yeah.
know. I'm very relaxed sitting here listening.
I think there's a
and
I
being
think
very-
there's a TikTok praise kink filter going around, and I actually think that
Yes.
one of the hearts that you can get above it is use your words, which
It
I
is.
think
I've
is-
seen, yes, I have
So-
seen that one. I haven't used it, but I've seen it, and that is one of the options, as well as eyes on me. But one of the things that we've discussed previously to this in a different podcast is the difficulty that both men and women, but a lot times more often males, in expressing emotion. And one of the things that I advocate for, as you're discussing, discussing desires, discussing consent, and I think one thing that romance novels also include are emotions and our ability to cope. And it's one of the reasons that I wish more men read romance books.
So, from a performative standpoint, I do some coaching. I've done a couple male-only workshops in an attempt to kind of, because there's a lot of great stories out there, and I think that there's a need for more great romance storytellers. So, I've done some coaching, and one of the things that I like to point out to folks about romance in particular, and this is really apparent when I work on titles like, for example, an author like A.L. Jackson is really good at this.
She's a
She'll write-
beautiful prose and emotion.
Oh, absolutely.
So, but here's the thing about her heroes. You understand this from the male perspective here, right? She writes men who, on the surface, are extremely guarded. They don't reveal what they're feeling. However, what's happening behind the scenes when the author writes the full story is not only are you hearing the character say to the heroine, I don't talk about my past, or we don't mention that part of that's, you see this guarded, but what you then get in between is, I think about my brother every day. I don't talk about that pain because it's too fucking real. So the performer's got to find something somewhere to connect to that, because it is still in the story. The man's emotional journey is, in fact, a part of the storytelling, even when on the surface, in the dialogue itself, you're not getting that. And that is another example, by the way, of what is so fucking cool about books and so fucking limiting about movies and television.
Right. And I
Sure.
love when you get to that dark moment and the male character breaks and has to now acknowledge. That's one of my favorite parts of romance books for the heroines as well. But oftentimes, at least in my own books, it's the hero realizing things need to be acknowledged.
Yeah.
I don't want this anymore. I don't want to feel this way. And it's usually I want her, and in order to get her, I have to address some things that are deep
Yeah.
down inside that I'm hurting, and she was making feel better. So I love that. I also happen to love A.L. Jackson. I think she's a wonderful author.
Fantastic author.
Yes.
Well, and I think like that's best part of writing these novels is the growth, is the journey in
Yes.
these people. I love taking them from like they're absolute messes at the beginning. They can be messes in the middle, but they're trying to find like, I'm trying to be better. So that growth in people is such a great thing about storytelling. So like, yeah, all my men are fucked up, just like, they never show emotion.
Have any books, Joe, speaking on this, ever made you be like, whew,
Whoa.
and like take
Yeah,
a step
too
back?
much,
Maybe
too
you need a
much.
drink, maybe you need a book a therapy session, maybe whatever it is. You don't need to say any titles or names.
Yeah.
But wait, have you ever gotten to those moments before?
In when you say, whoa, like it's too intense or too much, or what is can you just sort of specify the whoa, I guess?
Any kind of where you step out of the book for a moment
Maybe this
and like it's
actually might
uncomfortable.
even, yeah,
Yeah,
be too
hit
much
too
for
close
me.
for home,
Yeah.
or It's making you think about things differently. Not any specifics about it, but have you ever gotten to those moments where that whoa is a lot to handle and you go get yourself a glass of bourbon before you keep going? Because when we're writing, oftentimes I do get to scenes and I do need to step away. Or I've written scenes where there's snot coming down my face, but I just need to get through it before I can literally just take my hands away from the keyboard. So any moments, whether it's a good thing or whether it's a not so great thing, where you're just kind of like, this is something that I need a moment to deal with myself.
Chapter 65 of C.D. Reese's The Girl on the Edge.
So first of all, you have an excellent memory.
I know.
Amazing.
Second of all, I love C.D. Reese. I just got an ARC from one of her books. And third of all, please keep going. I didn't.
That is one of my favorite stories, and that character suffers a kind of psychological breakdown in that chapter that is unlike anything that's ever happened. It's recorded all in one take, and I emailed the editor afterward, and I said, and CD, I said, listen, if I didn't get the words right on this, I hope you'll give me some grace, because there is no fucking way that I can tap back into where I went during that moment.
Wow.
So if what I did in that one take is salvageable, please just use the take as is. And it was kept that way. Chapter 43 for Jesse Hall's That Sick Love. And really, frankly, most of that title, that was a descent into a part of romance that I have never really ventured into before. And for me, was a part of an awakening whereby I had to start by giving myself permission to make room for those kinds of love stories. This very fractured person with a totally broken soul, who needs to work through his trauma in a lot of really questionable ways, even with the partner that he finds in the story and in the end. And it's hard. And I realized that it's not for me to place my value judgments on people's love stories. It's for me to find the ones that I think are really well written and do the best I can to help bring them to life. And the most incredible comments I ever get are from fans for whom some of those stories are as comforting and as soothing as somebody else's rom-com HEA moment may be. Riley Edwards, Holden's Resurrection, chapter 25.
Oh, I
is
love
another one.
her. She's moving close to me, Joe. So soon
Okay.
I'll be able to go out with Riley, and I can't wait.
think
But
it's-
can you repeat which title that was?
I think it's Holden's. So here's the thing. Listen, ladies, listen, romance authors.
We're listening.
I appreciate the need to create titles that are all thematically similar for a series, but as a performer, it is very hard to remember. I'm like, okay, it's Holden. Was it Holden's Resurrection, or was it his redemption? Was it Holden's salvation, or was it Nixon's freedom? I'm like, fuck. I believe it's Holden's Resurrection or Salvation. I believe it's book 3 in the like Blue Gemini series. Now I'm just combining every Riley Edwards title.
Well, they could just read her whole backlist.
Yes.
That's the solution.
I recommend.
Yeah.
So, but yes, there's a couple of chapters, in fact, that I've done I've actually found a great deal of emotional connectivity from doing chapters inside of the Audio Attic, where I have a captive audience, fans that want to be there to be a part of the raw record, the original work. For me, as somebody who I said really loves stage performing and having an audience, they have connected me to material in a way that I really never thought possible. So a couple chapters from some Serena Ackroyd titles that I did, where they'll tell you, like, I had to excuse myself from the booth afterward. Normally I sort of say, hey, wasn't that fun? Great. I'll see you all next time. And I would just sort of finish and then like quietly leave because I went somewhere. And I think because of the fact that there is one sense being activated from the storyteller to the listener, this microphone will pick up every fucking lie that a performer tells. You cannot get away with anything here. Whereas you can on stage. If you're in a musical production and you miss a note, gives a shit. There's costumes, there's dancing, there's 1,000 things going on. If you miss an emotional moment in a compelling part of a story, and this is the only way that a person is taking that story in, they fucking know. They know every time, which means, I think, you have an obligation, and frankly, what a fucking joyous one to have, to commit and go there every single time to the best of your ability.
Not to put any pressure on our podcast and the fact that I randomly make jokes for comic relief, and sometimes they're probably going to miss. We're just going to cheer. Podcast is not as important as audiobooks, especially romance novel
That's
audiobooks.
right.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's right.
We're here
Well,
just for fun.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
also, I don't want that. I'm sorry. I don't want that to sound too serious.
Oh,
Oh,
no.
no.
I was making a joke. Just
Okay. Well, and I usually
we
I want
haven't
everyone
launched.
to like
Yeah.
make
We
the
have.
jokes, and some of
Yeah.
them hit and some of them don't, and that's great. Or,
Yeah. But this is off collar and like it's just conversational and talking to a friend. Whereas with a story, every line matters. If you fluff it with
Yeah.
words, you're going to lose people. If you miss a beat, you're going to lose people. If there's a continuity error or something that takes you out of the scene, whether it's a whoa or whether it's something that's like, what? Like it will take you out. So what you said totally resonates. But at the time I was thinking, it's a good thing this podcast is edited because it is
A
an
very
audio.
good thing.
So I'm curious
Yeah.
about though, with this whole like wave, I mean, very, very popular. We saw you at the events. How are you taking events and the kind of just the
Yes.
crush of these women that are coming kind of
Mhm.
after you? And I'm just wondering how, you take that in stride of, because they can be very aggressive too, like,
Yeah.
and
And
getting it,
you should
but-
know, Joe, we did also discuss on a separate podcast about some readers crossing a line with male models and such at events, and kind of the horrors that can occur with parasocial relationships. Just so you know, so we've definitely discussed some things, and we're aware that sometimes readers do take it too far, but we also know that it's wonderful to be around readers at times.
Yes.
I spend so much time alone in a tiny, tiny room, and wrestled for a long time with whether or not I had any interest in going to live events, or if I even wanted to have a social media presence, if there was any way, shape, or form that I wanted to connect to fans. And something happened during COVID, frankly. 3 stories in particular. I heard from a nurse in Houston who told me that her job had turned into a war zone and that she had my audiobooks in her car and at her house, and that those were her breaks from a hell that she was immersed in. I had a woman in Italy, fucking halfway across the world from where I am, email me and say she'd been alone. Italy was one of the hardest hit early on. They were in crazy lockdowns. She said stories that I told were the only like connection she had. She was learning English and she felt unalone by having my voice in her apartment with her. And another woman told me, this was during the time, but not COVID related, that she was in chemotherapy and had a 2-hour drive and then a 4-hour session and a 2-hour drive back. And then she listened she listened to over 100 of my books during the course of her treatment. And so I'm so thrilled to be able to be a part of people's lives that I may never meet or know. And the idea that I can show up to these events and celebrate these stories with fans face to face has been, for me, nothing but a joyous experience so far.
Excellent.
The respect has been a two-way street, and the stories that I get to hear and the hugs I get to give and the handshakes and the husbands I get to meet and the partners that I get to hear tell stories of that I live for that stuff. It's so incredible. I had a guy come up to me in Lexington at Authors in the Bluegrass. Big dude, neck tattoos, shoulders that kept going. I mean, I was like, is this guy on the football team here? Or and he said, he looked at me, he said, "Hey, are you Joe?" And I said, yeah. He said, "My wife listens to your books." I'm like, okay, this could go one of two ways right now, I guess. And he sticks his hand out. He says, "I want to shake your hand." And I said, "Great." He said, he said, "My wife feels more confident about herself. She's happier than she's ever been, and we have a better relationship than we've ever had." Thanks. Yeah, man, that's
Yeah.
what I'm here for. And that's the fucking best.
Yeah.
So I love those moments, and those kinds of experiences give me the energy and the strength to keep getting back in here and saying, okay, I
Keep
got to do
going.
right by this next one, because whose ears might this land on at the time in their life when it might do something to bring them some sort of comfort or joy. So
And I can say for authors, I feel the same
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Do you have any events coming up that we should know about?
well, I will be in Triple Falls, North Carolina with Kate Stewart, doing a Ravenhood signing event at the location of that trilogy's story. And that's happening in November. And then I will be signing at Readers Take Denver.
We'll be
We'll
there.
all be there.
Okay, well, let's hang. I will be there as well, and I can't wait. As of right now, there is a plan for me to sign at Rare Paris as well.
Where,
So
when is that?
it's like 2 weeks or 3 weeks before Readers Take Denver. It's like
So next year.
early March
Okay.
2024, and then mid-April 2024, I'll be in Denver. And then
Excellent.
I did an event in Los Angeles that I sort of helped sort of do on my own with the help of sort of my community of amazing people. And we are talking about what that might look like in the fall of next year as well. So my hope is that there is some Audio Addict sponsored or Joe Arden sort of sponsored live event somewhere.
Well, that's beautiful. That's wonderful. Are these on an event page on your website? Probably.
Listen, probably.
Maybe.
If not, more than likely there are links in your bio.
Yes.
The audio addict gets all the information first. That's the
Excellent.
first space that I share all information. So patreon.com/Joe Arden, if you are as committed to this stuff as I am and those folks are. After that, TikTok and Instagram get information blasted out as well.
Follow on TikTok. I know I keep
Yes.
interrupting you, Joe,
Mhm.
but my TikTok is more lively with you in it. So
Listen, hey, can I say something? Same.
Yes.
That's a two-way street. Same. Ditto.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but I am so fucking emotionally invested in every single box that I have seen you pack. I'm
It's like,
not.
what can we put in this? Yeah.
You make it so fucking fun. It's
It
so.
is fun.
It really
Yeah.
is.
You're like,
I
it's
know.
the.
I need her to
like,
do my stuff. I'm the kind of I'm
Yeah.
the one that wants to be behind the camera.
And you know what I think part of it is the mystery box situation. So you've
Mhm.
created this space whereby your fans are basically giving you permission to add an additional creative element, and it feels
Mhm.
intensely personal because they're
It
like, all right,
is.
they got a 6-book mystery box and indicated that their favorite color is pink and that they really love, enemies to lovers. So I'm gonna throw in this bodyguard romance and this one here and this one because this is my
Yeah.
favorite enemies
Yeah.
to lovers. And I was like, oh, that's so fun. It just became
Yeah.
so unique.
Exactly. And sometimes they'll be like, I'm a teacher. And I'm like, oh, she needs discrete books then. Or like, I'm a nurse and I travel an hour and a half. I'm like, oh, she needs earbuds. Or so like, just so there's just
I'm
that
always
little bit of
looking to see
information.
like the little extra things that you put
Yeah,
in, like
that I
the
pack, yeah.
bags and things like
Mhm.
that. I'm like,
All
what's
the
she putting in
cute
today?
stickers. I try to keep up with it. I try to keep it fresh. But I'm like, I need new stickers every week now. So that's awesome. Do we have any other questions though? I'm not ready for this to end.
I know. I'm
I-
like, I can hear him all night. I'm like, just keep
I
talking.
know, right? And Joe
I've got
really,
great news. There are, in fact, over 600 books. There are probably
Yeah.
more hours than there are in a year, and you could just keep me
Wow.
in your head the whole time if you wanted.
and our listeners can find them
Dangerous
at
place to be.
Audio Addicts,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So the Audio Attic, which is on Patreon, is where I am creating again that original content and sharing professional insights and working on the projects. And really, I'm also try and use that platform and all the platforms that I'm on to uplift the authors and highlight those collaborations. I don't think there's a single woman in this world that needs my help dominating. I'm surrounded by incredibly talented, brave, collaborative, amazing female voices and minds every day. But there are some authors that I work with who are like, a little newer, or like Jessie Hall, for example. She's doing an amazing job creating story after story and building her world, but she'd had nothing in audio. So it was really wonderful to be able to collaborate on that first time, and to invite the audio addict in to be a part of that collaboration and say, hey, this is what it looks like behind the scenes while I'm working on that. So you go to Audible and you can type in Joe Arden and every book is there. Some authors like Trisha Wolfe, for example, who I do some really nice
Love
dark stories
her.
with. Some of her books are widely distributed, so you can find those at your library, or you can find those on your Scribd account. Oftentimes, if you have a KU account, you can get your audio at a deeply discounted price, and then you can kind of like tag team it. You can read before bed, and then I can read it to you in the drive to work in the morning, and then you can listen again at lunch, and then you can read again before bed. So yeah, so that's where it is. And on all social platforms, I am at the real Joe Arden. So
I
Yeah.
just learned that it's scribd, not scribed. I
oh
have been
no, I don't.
I've been saying
like,
it
No,
wrong.
it's probably
I've never heard
scribed.
I've literally never heard it said out loud.
I
I don't
haven't
think
either.
Yeah.
I don't think
No,
I have
me neither.
either.
So
Let's
Okay,
say
so
we're gonna need to
let's
do
just
some
make it up.
research on this.
Either
I
way,
say
we
words
know how
wrong
it's
all the time.
spelled. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why we need audiobooks.
Well,
So we
listen,
know how to
Exactly.
pronounce words. Yeah.
that's my
Exactly.
Especially
favorite.
names of
Yeah,
characters. People always say the names of my characters wrong until they hear the audio, and they're like, "Oh, that's it."
Yeah.
one of my favorite things that I've seen on the internet ever is somebody that said, don't make fun of somebody that mispronounces a word. It just means they read it somewhere."
Mhm.
Exactly. I
So
actually,
There you go.
and when I was in college, I had not my neuroscience professor who was in charge of me, but another one. When I was giving presentations, if I didn't know how to say a word, I would say it and then look at him, and he would either nod or he would give me the right word. And I relied on him so heavily, and like I had a lot of like respect and gratitude for him, because my own advisor would sometimes laugh and be like, it's this.
Oh,
And I'm
Yeah.
like, I literally never heard it out loud, so I wouldn't know, but I know what I'm talking about. I just don't know how to say it. So I personally love that quote, because she should have read that quote and
yeah,
observed it.
yeah.
Yeah.
That just makes people not want to speak out loud. Makes you want to,
Yeah.
definitely
Exactly. Now I'm
hide.
feeling
Yeah.
feisty because she's like, I ended up leaving the neuroscience program because of a number of things, but she was part. Anyway, let's not end on that note.
Now
Let's
we're going
go
back
back
to the drama
to
we started off
scribd
with.
be scribed. I know, right? Now we
which
need to do a
again,
hot
I'm not the
take.
authority on this. That may very well have been mispronounced. I will take this moment to remind any author that is listening, if you are getting your work done in audio, please do not assume that any name that you have written has an obvious
No.
pronunciation. Please, please,
Mhm.
please, if you want the name of a character said a certain way, please let the production team know. No name is too simple for two narrators to fuck it up.
Yeah.
I promise. Kara, Kara, Anna, Anna. Those are four-letter names that look so obvious to everybody, and there's multiple ways of pronouncing many of them. So
I
please.
just do that in everyday life. I'm
Yeah.
always mispronouncing people's
I
names.
mispronounce my own damn name. So I'm just curious, is there an accent you've never tried or you'd like to try?
Oh, Joe, could I be weird and ask you to do some accents? Because it's the coolest thing listening to you just
Okay.
transition in and out of them in
Let's-
like real time. It's crazy. Like the
No
talent
pressure.
is,
No
I know,
pressure.
right? No pressure.
Do it. Do it. Do it.
So some of the accents that are challenging for me and require a more immediate amount of research before I'm going to tackle them, or the kind of difficulty for me that I wouldn't even do like a hero in that voice, would be a space like South Africa. Like all I can say with a South African accent is, I'm from South Africa. That's like it. Some of the Scandinavian countries can be a little challenging too, and so I need more time with the sounds before I can get there. Um, I've got a lot of easy time kind of working my way around places like Ireland is really not a bother at all. And I can go from a place like this. This is a lot more like Dublin, sort of middle of the country, big city, to a bit more south of the island, like a bit like down there in Cork. They got a bit more, they got a bit more sing-songy in the voice. They really do kind of lyrically say everything that comes out of their mouth. And you go out of the pond, you end up in Scotland, and if you're like in Glasgow, like you get kind of muddy and like in the mouth. But if you're in Edinburgh, like you can still kind of clip a bit, and like it's not totally in the back of your throat. Yeah, like Train Spotting, like I fucking love the guys in it, and that Scottish is so great. It's like shite Scottish with the lowest of the fucking low. Uh, And
I
then
love it so
pop
much.
over the pond and like do sort of a little upper crusty British is sort of not that difficult to sort of dive into. I feel like everyone that's got an acting degree has done this part of England. I don't know if anyone in England talks this way anymore, so hopefully I just do a bunch of Regency romances and then we can talk accents. And then like if we go stateside, I fucking love going all over the fucking country and finding different
Oh,
parts
Boston.
that
God, it's so Boston.
where people just fucking talk a certain way based on
Pack in
where
the
they're
cup,
from.
have a
Yeah.
dad.
I was in, I spent some fucking time in Boston and I heard somebody say, my daughter used to take a theater class there. And I was like, oh, that's the fucking most Boston sense I've ever fucking heard.
Do
Oh,
that
did your
really
daughter
well.
take a theater class there? That's fucking great. Wicked fucking smart class. Or you can head down to like different parts of the South and the like I've spent time down there and this is more like kind of Appalachian sort of East Tennessee. It's like very twangy, like a lot of like hard eyes and that sort of nice night for a knife fight kind of thing, which would be a little bit different from like a part of Georgia where it's a little more buttery kind of roll into this part of the mouth. Or you get all the way down there now Creole country, they get on them way down there by them swamps. You get them real fucking scary dudes. They'd be fucking menacing down there. You know, you don't fuck with them. They got gators and fucking knives down there. So
I love
uh,
you have no like I'm sure you
Oh
do
my
know.
God, the
It's
end. We gotta.
amazing. Yes,
That was the best thing
it's
ever. I
the
think it's the
talent is
end.
incredible.
That
It
was-
really is
Oh.
incredible. Yeah. Did you just wipe a tear from your eyes, Stacey?
Especially-
It was beautiful. Yes. I was like I apologize for asking you to perform on the spot. It's just honestly incredible. And I appreciate you doing it and I appreciate you being here.
Yes, thank you, Joe,
listen,
for
the
being
the next
here.
time you are thinking of asking me any sort of accent-related questions, you run it by his team before he talks. You understand this?
Yes, sir.
I'm Dimitri, and I make
Yes.
sure that Joe does no accents that he does or does not want to do. Capiche?
Capiche.
Capiche. I don't know what part of fucking Eastern Europe they're saying capiche,
Yeah.
but I like it.
Yeah.
I love it.
So-
I love it.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
thank you again so much for
Yes.
joining us. We've
You
had
were
a
a
blast with
joy.
you, and we would
Yes.
love to have you back on again.
Yes.
Anytime.
Oh, thank you.
100%. Yes.